And welcome to my kitchen. I'm sitting by a lot of green beans that I just picked from the garden, and we are going to dive in and talk about social media, taking time off, and debriefing a social media sabbatical.
I'm Kezia, mum, wife, blogger, author, 5am coffee drinker. I wear a lot of hats, and in all my roles and here on the internet, my goal is to make a lower footprint life a little less complicated.
People have asked me the whole way through, how is it? What's it like? And I think we're maybe all intrigued by people who take time away from social media. So here is a little dive into my time. My primary reason was that we're the first generation to live with social media and to parent with it. But we also are constantly becoming aware of the potential negative impact. And I knew I needed some time to really decompress, to learn myself as a human and a mother without social media, so I could choose my way back in if I wanted to and really know side by side how it affects me. It has been a really good process. Honestly, I would highly recommend everyone delete social media apps for a time, just to know, not because they're evil, but just to really be able to analyze, what am I like without it? What am I like with it? What can I learn about my relationship with social media? So highly recommend that. One of the big changes for me was not creating content. I have been creating content online daily for a lot of years. And I've known that it divides my brain. And I wondered how I would feel stopping. And the answer is I did feel more present. I've been very good at work boundaries, largely because in some very low moments, I've seen its negative effect on life. But my brain has never felt like it has abided by those boundaries. And as I began to dive into research, I realized I was reading experts and researchers give words to what I had experienced. And I'll link some articles below. But there is one article that talks about how when we document an event as it's happening, we will remember less than if we document an event after. So creating social media content through life versus journaling each night and recalling the day, and we will remember less of it. And that's where I felt my brain was. I was remembering less of life. I was less present in life. And that's not something I want, especially in this season of parenting little kids. There is also more and more emerging research about how our brains are being rewired by social media, less because of how we use it, but just because of what it is and the way that it's created. And one thing that I really felt as I read it was social media is wiring our brains to multitask. It's wiring our brains for attention switching rather than focus on one thing, sustained focus. And that is something I have felt change as I've taken time away from social media, that I am more present and more focused on the situation that I'm in and what I'm doing. And that has been hugely beneficial and also brought a lot of joy and removed a lot of anxiety. So that being present and not having a divided brain has probably been the biggest thing that I have noticed in not being on social media. The other big topic that I noticed was, I will use the term emotional capacity, and the way that social media in a few different ways depletes my emotional capacity. As my kids get older, I am realizing the emotional capacity it takes to listen to their emotions, to value their feelings and their opinions, and to value kids as humans. We won't get into a big parenting debrief, but I think our generation is learning really well how to value kids as humans, to not parent with fear and through rote and by demanding obedience, but through working towards mutual respect. But that takes a lot more emotional capacity. It takes a lot more emotional capacity to listen and absorb their emotions and work with them rather than just say, do this because I told you to, all the time. And emotional capacity is finite. I wish it wasn't, but emotional capacity, mine at least, is finite. And I realized how much of my emotional capacity was being used up by social media. And it should have been going to my kids. And in the last few months, I've seen it go to my kids, and wow, have they needed it over the last few months. I don't know what I really would have done these last few months if I'd been giving that somewhere else. And that is something I'm really still analyzing, but I know, having experienced more presence and social and mental capacity, emotional capacity for my kids, I can't go back on that. So we have to figure out how to not go back on that. So what of social media takes my emotional capacity? I think it's many things. I have learned about myself, as I'm sure is true for many people, I feel everything very deeply, to my detriment, honestly. And it's not necessarily a positive thing. There are definitely negatives to that. Even logging on to post and create content we can be exposed to so many real situations close to home, around the world, both joy and celebration, trauma and pain, all evoking an emotional response. And some people, I think, do well with that. Others just don't. And you maybe have to know who you are to analyze your relationship with social media. But we have all of the feeling, the pain, the heartache, the joy, the celebration, without any real life lived in those situations, without any real response given. I know some of us, myself included, can feel a guilt when we feel like we can't handle others' situations, when we don't have the emotional capacity. And it feels like we should be able to watch, to understand, to listen, to learn. But what I've been reflecting on, and it's definitely still a question, is, am I using my emotional capacity the best way if I am using my feelings, my heart, my emotional response on situations where I can't give a practical human response? And I do believe there is power in what we can do on social media, because we've seen it, and I wouldn't be there if I didn't think there were positives in it. But I primarily want to use my emotional capacity on the situations that I can actually do something for. And if I'm using a lot on social media, and then when I come to the people who are close to me, close maybe geographically, or close relationally, or close just in situations I'm able to give myself to, that's where I want to have my energy, my emotional capacity to be able to give, where I can make a difference, not where I am just using something for no practical input. We will come back to this. So despite wishing I could handle it all and listen and process and respond, I've realized I can't. And by seeing, so much of the world multiple times a day, both in news and in just personal lives and the things affecting different people, I don't have the emotional bandwidth and presence to give myself where I actually am. And that is not a way that I want to live life. So then we take all that in the consuming side to the creating side, and I become very aware that this range of people and worldwide realities, big and small, for one person and for many people, is what I'm sending content out into. Those are the people viewing what I am creating. When we have a real life situation, I tell Jared in one way, I tell my sister in one way, I leave out bits for someone where I know that might cause them pain because of what they're going through. Then I go to tell another person and realize I shouldn't even tell them my story. They just need me to ask how they are and take them a meal. We respond really differently to different people. When we go on the internet, everyone gets the same thing. Some people would say, that's on other people, like that's on them, they're consuming, they can handle that. But actually, firstly, we know we're not in control on social media. That's half of the point of this. We as a society recognize we're not in control of our social media use much as we want to be. We're not. But also as a content creator at any level, I do feel responsible for the content I put out. So in processing that as I create content and being so aware of how it might be received by different people, which I want to do. If I'm going to put content out, I want to be aware of that. That is not a chore, but it does take emotional capacity. So maybe I should be better at it. There definitely are weaknesses will play into how we end up using social. We can think about what the ideal is, but we're not ideal, we're human. And so we have to work with where we're at. Maybe in life I will figure out some of these things and be able to handle things that currently I'm not able to handle, or things won't take my emotional bandwidth later on that they do take now, but I have to work with where I'm at now and make sure I'm being healthy in that. So, to be really honest, I have also realized social media fills a tank I don't think it should fill. And this has been a real discovery coming off social media. And we all know that there can be a blurry line for other people between real life and social media. And I think we all think we're smart enough for that not to be us. Like, I know where real life ends and where it doesn't. And in certain things, absolutely I do. But I think I haven't been aware of where the line has blurred for me. And that has been really revealing. I've realized I engage with need and causes and things online, and it is filling a tank of doing and giving myself in situations that I actually want to fulfill offline. I want to fill that tank offline practically in my local community, but I have given myself the maybe illusion of involvement or the illusion of different things by the way I've interacted. We can, share a post and comment on something and just read and learn something, and I think we can, for me, I can fill a tank that should be filled offline. So I am very grateful for that realization. And again, on all these things, maybe I'm the only one. With that though, following right on from that, I think social media can subconsciously devalue the small things. We can watch so much happen in a day that when we do think about doing something offline, something small, we're not then connected to this global community. We're not showing a global community. We're not watching so many different things in the span of a minute happen. We're just one person doing one thing in our own home. And I think that can get very devalued. Even though we know this is a reality and we know not to compare, it still happens. And we really need the confidence in our own ability not to be usurped by watching so many different people achieve online and so many people do different things and watching, 10 different experts in a row, and then we're just us. We need to have confidence in ourselves and in what we're doing. And we need the small things, the small moments, the small changes, the being present, the small choices, the small change, the small steps forward. We really need it. And I think for me, I realized social media has actually devalued that in some way. But kind of the other side of the coin of that exact same thing is, did I miss anything? Did I miss scrolling? No. Did I miss posting? No. Did I miss keeping up with friends? Actually, no. I loved that people said, oh, you're not on social, or let me tell you about that thing I posted that I know you won't have seen. I appreciated that. But I did miss sharing the choices we're making, knowing for some reason this part of our life, our journey towards a lower footprint and looking at our impact with what we bring into our home, it's an area that helps other people. And so I did miss knowing I can share this and I know it will help some other people. And I found myself wanting to do that, to share beyond our own home what we're doing, and do it as part of a community. So that leads to moving on from here, what happens? And the answer really is, I don't exactly know. I know that I'm not prepared to go back on being present. I'm not prepared to go back on my mind not being split, but I do want in some way to share bits of this journey, because we need to value the small things. We need to do it together. We need to do it in a not judgy way. And that's all of what I love about this community. But I think it's going to look like a bit less social media, a bit more long form content like this, or sharing an email in different ways and blog posts that feel more intentional. Also definitely showing up on social media. But as I've thought about the content that I want to put there, I am going to make it more pointed towards less daily life, to do less of the everyday spontaneous content and more on purpose content of the different things in our life to make, like I said at the beginning of this video, lower footprint living just a bit less complicated. And maybe I will get back on Instagram and then realize, actually, this is not the best thing for my life. I'm off forever. But for now, I want to come back and see what it looks like to do it a little bit of a different way, a little bit more slowly, but still to be in this community and doing this aspect of life together. So there is my messy analysis of 3 months off. In conclusion, I highly recommend doing it. So take a break. I will be slowly coming back to Instagram, and I don't know what it'll look like, but I'll see you there.